What's up, guys? Hello and welcome back to your favorite little show here on the interweb. Welcome back to Dad Malls, and welcome to day 4 of the Cincinnati expedition. On our first beautiful sunny day on this trip along Lake Michigan, we travel way up north to the Michiana area to the city of Elkhart, Indiana, to take a look at their literal time capsule, Concord Mall. Now, Concord Mall in the Dead Mall community is almost like a legend, an oddball if you will. Every single mall I have ever been to has been renovated at some point. Some malls are completely changed, torn apart, and put back together, and some are just good paint jobs. The Concord Mall, no, it has never ever been renovated, ever. This 70s mall literally blows you away when you walk through those doors. Before we get started, I'd like to shout out our winner who is able to successfully guess the next mall. Very nice job, Raw and Real Retail. If you'd like to have your chance of being shouted out in the next episode, be sure to stick around for the next challenge. Anyways, let's head across that dark blacktop and through the doors of this skylight and brick-filled beauty, tell its story, and see how Concord Mall is doing in May of 2022. Concord Mall's tagline, honestly, it shouldn't be about shopping. You could turn this place into a museum, have each old storefront be a different famous mall from a different decade, with neons and planters. Well, at least that's my dream. It astonishes me how well kept this relic is. From those huge center court palms to the brick and tiled planters, floors, and ceilings. This 50 years ago was a modern mall. People would have been amazed at all of these aesthetics and thought, gee whiz, it really don't get much better than this. Concord Mall's story begins in Elkhart, Indiana in the early 70s. Immediately, 3 major malls were to be constructed in the Michiana region, which, for those of you who aren't familiar, is the South Bend, Elkhart, Mishawaka, and Niles metro area, a fairly large populated area. So for 3 malls to be built, and with one on the way, at the time it seemed like a great idea. After all, mall culture was taking over, and malls were as common as Walmarts back then. Concord Mall was just one of these malls to be built, a middle child if you will. In 1970, Pierre Moran Mall would open just 2 miles away from where Concord Mall was already under construction. Pierre Moran was actually an outdoor mall constructed in 1950, however would be enclosed that year of 1970. As people got ready for all of these malls to jump into the area, and as small businesses prepped for the worst, Montgomery Ward and Robertsons had signed on as day one anchors for the new Concord Mall, with space for a large addition coming very, very soon. On August 8, 1972, Concord Mall would hold its grand opening ceremony, with Miss Indiana cutting the red ribbon, allowing patrons into the modern shopping paradise. Opening with 35 stores and many more coming very soon, the mall was instantly booming with success. Robertson's and Montgomery Ward sat on opposing ends, while a massive tiered center court found towered above and pulled them all together. Shoppers could delight themselves in locations such as Musicland, Walden Books, KB Toys, Super Sounds, MCL Cafeteria, Fox Jewelers, Osco Drug, and a two-screen theater. Just a year after opening, the booming mall would be joined by its close competition, Scottsdale Mall, a massive two-story behemoth that attempted to essentially double what Concord Mall had. Literally. These three malls in the early years would be in close competition with each other. In 1976, Concord would get the upper hand though, with the opening of its brand new third wing, continuing new stores, and its third official anchor, JCPenney. The JCPenney area does feel a little more modern than the original wings, which you had in the early 70s, and this was kind of commonplace with all malls of the early days, were storefronts that were unique and so different from each other. Each one looked sort of like a business, like a building on a main street. When you walk through Concord, it's sort of like a miniature Disneyland. All of these halls are like Main Street USA's. Coming up here, I couldn't help myself, and I had to take a rest on that circular brick planter. It was just too tempting. But first, JCPenney, which has the coolest ceiling lighting above it, and you'll see here in a second. I love it so much. If I had to guess, I'd say this was in Aladdin's castle, or at least some kind of arcade. Those colors just give off those vibes, and I think I'm pretty good at guessing that, but I don't know, you guys let me know in the comments below. What was this store? Concord Mall would face some ups and downs throughout the 80s, however, things would remain very positive for the mall. Newer stores would join the mix, Sam Goody certainly, and the mall would continue to grow very slowly. One of its biggest hampers, and something that affected all three of the Michiana malls, was the opening of their newest sister, University Mall, in 1979. University Mall seemingly had everything anyone could want, and soon most people just went to that mall. It was conveniently located right next to the booming Notre Dame area, right along I-90, so it was no wonder really. In 1985, Robertson's, a day one anchor, would go bankrupt, closing their location at Concord Mall. This loss wasn't too big of a deal, with the local Indiana-based Mice department store opening up shop in the space soon after. However, 4 years later, in 1989, Elder Bierman would purchase the Mice store, and the space would be refit accordingly. As the 90s began for Concord Mall, the road would start to get pretty rocky, and the mall would begin to face its ultimate downfall. Don't you worry, we come back through and we check out all these aesthetics, especially that palm tree center court. I just had to be careful as a rather intimidating security guard sat and stared at me, which was just great. So I was very careful, especially after my last encounter, which I did not want to repeat. In 1990, according to a YouTube comment I read, the massive center court found would be turned off permanently. Why they did this is beyond me. But as the 90s began, stores would slowly start to leave, while the other malls, Scottsdale, University, and even the small Pierre Moran would embark on renovations and additions. Concord Mall would literally just add some bathrooms. Scottsdale Mall in particular was beginning to flutter, trying desperately to bring people back. However, its massive outdatedness was just not as great as the constantly modernizing University Mall, and stores from all three of these malls left for the big one in droves. Also in the 90s, the outdated anchors were being replaced by convenient big box such as Walmart and Target, of course. In 2000, Montgomery Ward, a staple at Concord Mall since opening, closed, and later that year at Scottsdale, with the entire company liquidating. The space would shortly be split into a Hobby Lobby and ABC warehouse. Very soon, Concord Mall would lose its sisters. Scottsdale Mall, after years of struggling, would close in 2003 and be wiped from the face of the earth by the end of that same year. Pierre Moran would also close in 2006 and quickly be demolished soon after. It was now just the ailing, outdated, and never renovated Concord Mall and its roided sister, University Mall. Life would be tough as the 2010s began. Concord Mall slowly went from the main mall of the area, featuring the best names in the city and the hottest stores, to a dying community mall, featuring empty storefronts and mom-and-pop shops. Just a few years prior, in 2008, the old empty Osco drug space near the front would be gutted and turned into a brand new food court called The Grove. However, the only tenant it would ever attract to fill one of the 6 spaces was a small Subway. Occasionally, traveling shows and conventions of sorts would filter through the mall and bring traffic, but any other day, the mall was just empty. In 2011, Elder Beerman would convert their space into a Carson store. Those huge center court palms would occasionally breeze with the old AC and rain dust down on the now gutted fountain area, turned into a makeshift playpen. Concord Mall was dying a very slow death, as things seemed to just sort of slow down. For years, Concord Mall would stagnate, literally stuck in 1972. Old storefronts from the time still had visible label scars and signs up. Nothing was changed, and companies simply didn't want to set up shop in this old, empty atmosphere. While people like me love it and adore it, and I'm sure most residents do, businesses just see better opportunity at the University Mall. In January of 2018, Carson's parent company, the Bon Ton, would announce closure of their store, and the lights would go dark just months later. In June of 2020, JCPenney would announce their departure of the dying mall, however, would ultimately cancel and stay. It's my true belief that this single decision has saved this mall and left it alive, at least for now. Guys, thank you so much for joining me here today on this short visit to Concord Mall. This place was an absolute treat to be at. No kidding, I think I got my retro sweet tooth filled for quite a while. If any of you are ever in the area, you know what I'm gonna say. Stop by Concord Mall and support some of these small businesses, or just relax in that palm court. I really hope this mall survives, but to be 100% honest, as it is, I don't see that happening for too much longer. Redevelopment has been on the table for so long that it's just bound to happen any day now. If you guys enjoy my Dead Mall content, consider subscribing so you don't miss out on future Dead Malls episodes. And make sure to have the Patreon and support me, and I'll send you a monthly Dead Mall Polaroid taken and signed by me. Next week we'll be heading just across the border to the world's saddest, emptiest, and deadest mall ever, built on the site of an old fruit farm. Guess which mall I'll be at, and I'll shout you out in the next episode. Anyways, until then, have yourselves a lovely Halloween, and peace out guys, see you later.